This is Retire Hour.
Welcome into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape that is retirement. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and we've got a full show for you this week. You won't want to miss coming up later in the at the end of the show with lead CPA Joshua Sikora. The interesting thing is people are still getting stimulus money. In fact, we've had a handful, more than a dozen of people get stimulus money. You'll want to know what you should be doing there, and are you a lucky recipient of some free money from the IRS? But we've got Danny Goolsby here, and you recently had a phone call, one of those 15-minute, just kind of the discovery phone calls, just to see if really people could benefit and answering some questions. Tell us a little bit about that 15-minute call that you had with someone just recently.
Sure. And as you state, that we a lot of times will do these stories on Retire Hour and Eye on Retirement, different shows. Taco Tuesday,
taxes and tacos.
Well, one of those tacos. But we do these shows and we share stories with people about the different things that we come across and the different experiences people have. And I had a phone call one time with someone who recently that his set of circumstances, if you will, where he said he had come to a couple of our workshops. So we do these workshops. So we're out in the public arena several different ways. And he had come to workshops in the past, and he'd also heard us on the radio and seen some Eye on Retirement shows. And he said, I need to know more about this. And so he scheduled a 15-minute phone call with me. And he wanted to say, hey, this is what's going on in my world. And so as it turns out, he had just retired from transportation. He's a snowbird, and he travels back and forth to Florida every year.
Now, that must be nice this time of year.
Well, yes, actually. He actually lives in Salina, but so he does a lot of...
Kansas.
Yes.
Wow. He travels from Florida. Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
I don't think they have a connection from Salina to...
I don't think they have direct flights from Salina to Florida.
Right. So he's a snowbird. As I said, he travels to Florida every year, and he spends January through April. And so his tax preparer, he lives in a community down in Florida where there's a lot of retirement homes where he lives. And in that community where he lives, they have people come on site to help with his tax preparation. So if you live there, then they have free
kind
tax
of like
preparation.
The old milkman came right to your door. I mean, the Schwan guy gets right to your door and does your taxes.
Well, hopefully the milk's not curdled, so so his tax preparer, as a community tax preparer, he does his taxes while he's there in Florida. And I asked him, I said, all right, so tell me, what kind of tax advice are you getting? What kind of tax planning are you getting? And he says, well, I'm really not. He said, my situation is pretty straightforward. He said, I thought I could do this myself as far as the planning goes, because I just have my pension from my employer where I retired from. I have Social Security, and occasionally I withdraw money from my 401k. But every time I'm in Florida, I get mail that has started in Kansas that has followed me down to Florida. And so by the time it gets to me in Florida, it's actually dated. And I'm getting hate mail or love mail, however you want to look at that, from my uncle, Sam, saying that I didn't do something right on my taxes. And so now I owe more taxes and penalty on things that I should have done because of my community tax preparer was not doing it right, and because my traveling back and forth was not doing it right. And he said, instead of having fun in the sun and having the carefree life in Florida during the harsh winters of Kansas, I'm actually stressed out because I'm now the penalties and interest thing is working against me. And he said, I finally said, Uncle. No, pardon the pun, Uncle Sam. He said, Uncle. He said, this has happened to me several years in a row. And he said, what can I do differently? And so we said, well, we probably need to schedule a time. And we spoke a little bit more about the details of his situation. And we got into some of the particulars. And I brought Joshua on the line of that call. And Joshua and he were talking on the phone. And he decided that he indeed wanted to have an in-person conversation with us and say, hey, this is how I've been doing it. And as you say many times before, if you keep doing the same thing,
and you're not going to get different results.
Right. And so, he was tired of getting that aggravation. He retired and went to Florida, and every year he retired, what looked like a blessing for him in his retirement community turned out there was some sort of disconnect somewhere. And I don't know where the disconnect was happening necessarily. I'm not trying to be disparaging to whoever's doing his taxes.
No, and the tragic thing is a lot of times when people are getting their taxes prepared, the year's already closed.
Yes.
There's nothing you can do.
Right.
And your tax preparer, I'm sure they're great. They're literally just filling in numbers in boxes. There's not a lot of maneuvers you can make because December 31st has come and gone. And you have these people, I don't even think you even gave him a name.
Let's give him George.
George. So you had this 15-minute call with George. He told you the tax person comes to him. That's great. But the tax person's coming to him at the wrong time of the year.
Right.
You need to have it before the end of the year. And you told me before the show started, he has a sizable nest egg.
Yes.
He's someone that really needs to be doing tax planning. But people out there that get letters from the IRS, whether you call them love letters or hate mail, that's not a great feeling to get. I don't think a lot of people get overjoyed when they see the IRS, soon to maybe be the XRS, the External Revenue Service, right? And no, that's another department. But it's not a pleasant feeling when you get those letters and you start to get worried and frustrated.
Sure. And again, you want to spend your life doing what you went to Florida for. You don't want to spend your life saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to, I don't even know what's wrong. They're saying that I owe X amount of money and they're disallowing this and so on and so forth. And again, you're in Florida. All of your information is in Kansas and your tax preparer is in Florida. And it's just seemed to be a giant, he said, she said, as they say.
Well, and you said George said that he said he's finally crying uncle. He thought he could do all this, and it's really a little more complicated, and maybe it's more time consuming. He really just wants to retire and enjoy retirement. He didn't want to do another job for a living.
Exactly. No, and that's why when we sat down with him in person. So again, sitting down with him in person with Joshua. And Joshua was able to spot immediately what was going on. And Joshua, said, "Hey, this is a remedy, and this is how we can fix this for you." And you could just see his shoulders.
On a 15-minute phone call, you could see the shoulders drop. That's an impressive.
In person.
Oh,
it was in person. So it was it was not a Zoom call. So
the second meeting, the first time when he came in. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right.
Gotcha. I'm thinking, wow, was this a Zoom?
No. But you could see him relax because he's like, I'm tired of doing this, and so you could see that maybe this season, when this will not happen to him again, that he'll have a better season down in Florida.
Well, and just like you were listening to Danny's story there about George, and maybe you're saying, there's some similarities here myself. I'm worried about these letters I get. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel overwhelmed. You can have just a 15-minute phone call with us just to see if you could really benefit, if there's something we could help you with in your situation. And you can do that by reaching out at 833-MAG-REPORT. That phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. We'd love to have that 15-minute conversation with you to get to know you a little bit better, help you understand your situation, what's going on there, and maybe even if it calls for that in-person or that hour-long full consultation, we'd love to talk to you more about how we can do that in office or virtually across any of our offices across the United States. We'll be right back with Larry Clefcorn right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. Speaking of ever-changing, we're going to have a new government coming up here this next week, and things will be changing, whether it's inflation, taxes. Hopefully taxes will be going down. But as inflation still roars, you have to make sure you're understanding how that impacts you. And if you're working with a retirement team that's disjointed, sometimes you don't get the full picture. And we've got Larry Clefcorn here, and this is kind of maybe an update to a story we've talked about a couple weeks ago. This is something that's continuing on. This is someone that was a client of ours from long ago, before we had attorneys to help with and CPAs and Medicare advisors all together, because we've been doing this before we did this as a group 10 years ago. But this client, he had buddies that was his CPA. He had his buddy that was his estate plan attorney, right? And
those people were not his buddies. His buddies referred him to these people.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So these were all people that he had to go out and meet with. Mm-hmm. Now, this client has since passed away.
He passed away, and his son is, of course, trying to settle his affairs, and he's been timely and doing everything, but he's got to get some involvement and some help because his dad had trust. He's having to get some help from them, well, they're not super motivated to stop all the things that they're doing to help him file a what number I started to say IUV.
Do we need to go get a CPA or an attorney in here?
Yeah, CPA probably. But anyway, a tax filing number.
Tax filing form? Okay.
Yeah, because it was, when you're living, usually it's in your social security
an EIN.
number. There we go,
An
EIN.
Employer identification number.
Yeah.
So they had to get its own tax number.
Yes,
It's a tax
yes.
ID.
And he was relying on the attorney to do that because the attorney said she would, and just waiting, and this has been dragging out, and he's been all kinds of frustrated. On the meantime, we have all the forms ready to do what he needs in terms of turning this money that he's inherited over into his name. And it has to be done in certain ways. And by the way, here's another situation where he inherited an inherited IRA.
Yeah, those are always fun.
That falls under the 10-year rule. So, and so he also has an accountant, but he's got to drive across town. He's got to speak their lingo. He's got to try to, and he is certainly frustrated. And we want to be helpful. And I've offered, I think I've even spoken to his CPA once or twice, but, he's seeing the benefits. He's in here with us and he's looking around. He's going, man, this would have been so much simpler.
Yeah. And that's the tragic thing. I mean, we try to help everyone that comes through our doors, whether they become a client of ours or not, help them with information, help them with their situation, but we don't make anyone do anything. And this original client, before we had all the services that we help people with now available to people, he went out and found his own crew. Right. And this is just one example of many of how I think the retirement system in America is broken.
Yes.
It puts all the responsibility on the individual, like this son, the beneficiary, and they don't know these things. They're busy with their life, and it's this foreign world to them. But then you have these attorneys who say they're going to help them with the employer identification number for the trust.
Yeah, right.
That's not a complicated thing to do. I watch these guys do it all the time over here in the tax department.
I know. In fact, a person could do it themselves.
Well, sure, but we're not licensed to do tax advice, so we don't want to tell people to do that. But we know many people that have done it themselves. You're right. But the thing is I think you've hit the nail on the head. He's frustrated because it's all on his shoulders.
Yeah.
The responsibility of seeing this all completed is on him.
Yeah. And it feels like it's going nowhere.
It probably isn't.
Obviously, the first thing come right out of the gate is the same thing with everyone. Well, we got to wait until we get our death certificates. Well, he's had his death certificates a long time, and he's still trying to get this. We're going to meet with him again this week. In hopes that we're going to be able to start making some progress, finally. I feel for the guy, I really do. Super nice guy. Served our nation in the military and, just very admirable person.
But he's overwhelmed because he's in an area that he's just not got a lot of experience in.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that his father had all the different pieces everywhere spread out, and he's having to try and navigate all that and keep progress moving. And it doesn't sound like he's having a lot of success at the moment.
And you know what? He moved his dad in with him for the last year and a half of his life and cared for him. And his dad didn't have dementia. It was other health problems. And most people would have shipped him
to a facility.
Yeah. But he cared for him. And so, in other words, he knew everything that his dad had told him. He knew who to talk to. They had gone together and met with all these people before he died.
So he knew,
including us.
He knew all the players.
He did.
But the fact of the matter is you can know all the players, you can have that relationship, but it's disconnected. It's disjointed, and the responsibility falls on your guys' shoulders. It falls on you, the listener or the viewer. And most people in retirement, they don't want to mess with this stuff. And if you wonder if you could benefit from working together as a team, or as all your professionals working together as a team, reach out and schedule a 15-minute phone call with us at 833-MAG-REPORT, or that's 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. We'd love to sit down and or we'd love to have that chat with you by phone and maybe discuss if we should sit down with you in person. But we want to make sure people are getting all the information they need so they don't have unexpected surprises in retirement. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more, and I'll just continue my conversation on why the retirement system is broken in America right after this. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And I mentioned this earlier, we're going to be having a new government. That'll mean changes probably to Medicare. That'll be hopefully changes to taxes for the better, I hope, but we'll see. Actually, taking a group of friends and our chief operating officer here and my stepson to the inauguration next week. We'll have some pictures and some fun things to report back from that. But I want to get back to what I was talking about with why I believe the retirement system in America is fundamentally broken. I mean, you were hearing me and Larry discuss in the previous segment about the gentleman who had lost his father, and he was having to go to all these different professionals because they were not all together. They weren't working together. And it's really strung out. It's really prolonged the transfer of his father's assets to him. Because again, the responsibility falls on that gentleman's shoulders. He has to make sure he's going between the estate planning attorneys, because there was a trust involved, between the financial advisors where the assets were, and between maybe a tax person or tax advisors to make sure he's not going to take this money in a way that's going to cost him a bunch of taxes. This is something we see time in, day out from people. And in fact, I just met with someone. I was teaching one of our tax classes in Belton, Missouri, a little suburb out of Kansas City, last week. And a gentleman came up to me after this class in Belton, Missouri, and he said, "Matt, we've been meeting with our financial advisor for years, and we ask them tax questions, but when we ask our financial advisor tax questions, they send us to someone else. And I just don't feel confident going and relaying all that information to another professional on a topic I don't really have a lot of experience with. That's why I hired this financial advisor." So we were meeting with this gentleman that I met with at the class. I haven't met with him yet, but this is a common theme that I hear from a lot of retirees, a common frustration, if you will, or a common maybe even worry that they're not getting all the information that they should be getting. And this is why I mention a lot that the retirement system, in my opinion, is broken in America, because you as the retiree, you might have someone helping you with your finances. You might even have someone, or maybe you still have it at your old 401k company, or maybe you work with a bank. But then, you have tax questions because those IRAs, 401ks, they've not had the taxes paid on it. And when you take that money out, you need to make sure you're doing it in the smartest tax-wise possible and making sure you're having your withholding set up. Then it can impact your Medicare premiums. If you take too much money out, you can trigger something called IRMA. All this stuff gets connected, and if you're not working with a team that's connected, it's your responsibility to make those connections. And we find that a lot of people in retirement, they want to enjoy retirement. They don't want to change jobs. They don't want to have a new skill that they haven't had any experience with. My fiance, my girlfriend, she'll say, "Well, you don't cut your own hair." No, don't look like it. Don't look like I cut my hair in 2 months. But if you're out there listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, "Man, that could be a real game changer if all the professionals I'm working with are around the same table and working together." And then it takes the responsibility off my shoulders, the retiree, of relaying all these information. If you wonder if you could benefit, reach out and schedule just a 15-minute chat with us by phone at 833-MAG-REPORT, or that's 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. I had to forget what show was on here for a minute, or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, we're also visiting some home shows here in the next couple of weeks. We've got the Johnson County Community Home Show coming up and Garden Show next weekend in Kansas City. You won't want to miss that. If you're in the Kansas City area, come on down to, I believe it's the Overland Park Convention Center. We'd love to give you some Retire Hour swag there as well. So, we've got those home shows. Are you working the home show, Mark?
I'm not.
You're not? You're
Only because I haven't heard about them. I was sitting here wondering, how come me and my team don't know about them?
Well, maybe they'll be able to meet you up there and ask questions. And, you see this a lot yourself too. You meet with a lot of people that come and they have a financial advisor, but that financial advisor can't help them with their healthcare questions, right?
Absolutely.
And they come to you guys, and then you start telling them about the different things like IRMA and the different financial ties. They don't want to relay all that information between their financial advisor, right?
Well, typically they don't understand it. And it's how do you relay to something else, somebody that you don't really understand? And so they're attempting to understand. Some of them want to understand, but how are you confident when you don't feel like you even understand the system that you're trying to explain to somebody else who doesn't have any experience in that system either?
It can be very, very frustrating and confusing for a lot of people out there. And like you said, the technical terms, the vocabulary terms, the formulas, and then once you learn them all, do they stay the same forever, or do they oftentimes change?
No, they change. They do change, and also, there's ways to mitigate some of those issues. There's ways to drop some of those things off, like IRMA, and they're complicated formulas, and it takes research. And even I sometimes have to go talk to one of our, CPAs as well. And I just had a conversation yesterday with Joshua about a client trying to figure out how do we help this person the best way. It's so much easier for me to do that internally than to send them to go find some rando, CPA somewhere who's well-meaning, but certainly doesn't have the level of knowledge or experience to be able to advise properly.
And then they have to start the process over. And then they have to relay all the information, and they have to make sure they don't leave out any details that are important, because that can often be a game changer. And again, if you guys are wondering, could you benefit? Reach out and just give us a call. We'd love to schedule a 15-minute chat with you. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT, or again, 833, the letters MAG, Market Advisory Group Report, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. Again, you don't want to miss that Johnson County Home and Garden Show in Kansas City. I believe it's down in Overland Park, again, at the Overland Park Convention Center. Next weekend, we'll be there giving out hats, coffee mugs, and swags, and you can also come ask us your questions in person, but you don't want to miss that at all. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more, with talking with Mark Benefield about prescription drug changes outside of open enrollment. Can you even do that? I guess we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss that. Welcome back into Retire Hour. I'm your host, Matt Goolsby, and we're continuing this conversation here with Mark. He's one of our healthcare advisors, works over in the Medicare division. Now, I thought annual enrollment was over, and I thought you couldn't change any. It is. Okay, well, that's good. I was right on that part. Now, I thought you couldn't change your drug plan because you're only allowed to change that during open enrollment every year, right? Or not?
Correct, but no.
Correct, but no. Okay. That's all the time we have for Retire Hour.
There's a government. There's another rule.
There's another
rule to counteract the other rule.
Oh, well, on the 5th
It's one of
Tuesday
those,
of the month?
it's 255 pages, so you got to vote for it before you read it, so you can read it to find out what's in it.
Oh, the Pelosi plan. You got to pass it before you know what's in it.
Exactly.
That one of those things. Exactly. Okay. Well, this is a story about Betsy, and she had some things that were changing in her healthcare situation, and it's kind of I think it's a good thing, because I just was under the impression you had to wait until open enrollment to change your prescription drug plan.
Well, that is actually the rule. And I'm even reluctant to talk about this right now, but for fear that our phone is going to start blowing up this afternoon. Because a number of people that I've talked to, just our current clients, in the last few days, since we were on vacation for a few days and then came back, about the changes that happened under the affordable or the
Inflation Reduction Act.
Thank you.
The IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act.
I'm trying to forget
one
it.
of those
I'm trying
darn
to forget
laws.
the name, but one of the changes, there were some significant changes this year in prescription drug coverages and a lot of different things, and that's brought about some very frantic phone calls from people as they started to pick up their prescriptions and have noticed that the prescriptions have went up exponentially, along with co-pays have went up, et cetera. And fortunately for people who live in Kansas, and I know people outside of Kansas will hear this, but for fortunately people that live in Kansas, they have there's a special enrollment period across the nation, but Kansas happens to have a program that fits within that, right? And this special enrollment period allows people to change their prescription drug coverage once per year outside of the annual enrollment period under certain circumstances.
Interesting. So tell us about Betsy's story then here, and tell us what's going on with Betsy's situation, because she's going to be eligible to change her plan, right?
Right. So Betsy's been paying, for a particular drug over the last couple of years. She was paying basically $148 for this one specific, and it is an expensive specialty drug. But the cost of that, or her portion of that, has went up exponentially. She got in the other day and found out it was going to cost her almost $700 for the same drug that she was taking last year. Oh, they forgot to mention that when they put together the whatever that thing's called, the
Inflation Reduction
Act. Yeah, that thing. They forgot to mention that everybody's stuff will go up. And by the way, that's not the new administration's fault, okay? It's the old administration's fault.
The outgoing.
Yeah. Anyway, Betsy her went up exponentially, and so she calls and says, "What am I going to do? I can't afford this medication. I don't have the money for it." She's not eligible for some of the other manufacturers' programs because she's on Medicare. So fortunately for her, there's a special enrollment period that allows people to change their prescription drug coverage once a year if that state has a discount pharmaceutical program that's available and your client is enrolled in that program. Okay. Not some states have their income driven to be able to in that program, like Missouri, for instance. Kansas, however, it is not income driven. Anybody's eligible for that, either whether they're on Medicare or not on Medicare. And it's as simple as going to a website, downloading the right information. You instantly become eligible under the special enrollment period to change it one additional time per year. So we're able to go out, look at the systems, look at the different programs, and find one that was, part of the problem was that she didn't come in during annual enrollment. We could have explained this to her.
That's
right?
problem one. But now she's seen...
Now she's seeing the effects of not meeting with us. And fortunately, we're able to extricate her from this problem by utilizing the special enrollment period, getting her enrolled in the Kansas Pharmaceutical Discount Program, thus giving us an opportunity to find her a program that we were able to now get her medication instead of I forgot what it was now.
148 to 700.
Yeah, $700. We've now got it basically down back to $148.
Holy cow. I mean, we don't have enough time for me to tear apart the Inflation Reduction Act, but that doesn't seem like that's lowering inflation if it causes your medications to go from $148 a month to $700.
We've talked about it before, and they did put a cap. They put a cap on how much you can spend per year. It's $2,000. The problem is a lot of people weren't even close to $2,000 before. So because there's a cap at $2,000, surprisingly, some of the medications have gotten more expensive and now pushed everybody up to that cap.
It spread it around.
Yeah.
It took it from the people that were paying more than $2,000, and it kind of isn't that called redistribution of wealth? But anyway,
that's kind of what I was thinking. Basically, we don't penalize it, and I don't want to get too salty with it. I mean, it is what it is, and our job is to help people navigate that and figure it out philosophically. I mean, we try to keep those things to ourselves, but my job is to help Betsy find the lowest cost options available that still meets her needs, and that's what we're able to do. Very, very few Medicare advisors even understand this particular special enrollment period. And the only reason I even know about it is because, believe it or not, one of the pharmaceutical companies actually explained it to me last year when I had a client that had a problem.
Yeah, that's amazing that you guys can help Betsy in this situation, because if I'm a financial advisor and my client's coming to me saying, well, my medications went from $148 a month to $700, as a financial advisor, I'm going to say, well, do I need to send you more money a month out of your account?
Exactly.
And that's not the answer.
And that's what happens. Well, let me send you a couple, an extra, $1,000 a month, a couple $100 a month, just enough to push you over IRMA, and now you get to pay an IRMA charge, upcharge, because now you've got too much income.
Wonderful, classic example of why I feel, again, the retirement system in America is broken. And if you are working with these professionals all disjointed, the responsibility falls on your shoulders to relay all these details between the professionals, to make sure you're reviewing your prescription drugs when you should. And if you want to figure out if you could work with this team, or maybe you have some questions, just some basic questions, you can reach out and give us a call to schedule a 15-minute phone call with us. You can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT. Or again, and that phone number again is 833, the letters MAG for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com or marketadvisorygroup.com. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back with one of our estate planning attorneys, Alex, and he'll be talking about some myths when it comes time for wills. Stay tuned. Welcome back into Retire Hour, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the ever-changing landscape of retirement. And I taught an estate planning class last night, and I've got Alex here. He's one of our estate planning attorneys. Someone was asking me last night at the class, well, I have a will. That means I can avoid probate, right? Well, I had to tell her a will has to go through probate, right?
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around wills, and those can get people in a lot of trouble. One of those is, well, I've got a will, so all I need to do now is when someone dies, all my property goes out, we're all taken care of. And they don't understand that it needs to go through the court system. It needs to get all these hoops to get jumped through to distribute the property, and especially the land or the real property, and make sure that happens correctly, so that if you then go try to sell the property, you're able to, and that you don't get told, oh, sorry, that's not how it works.
You mean the will has to be formally recognized through the court process before it actually has any validity to it?
Yeah, and you can get in a lot of trouble if you don't do that, especially if you're the executor and you're trying to act on your executor powers. I had a client who actually was investigated for fraud and stealing from other people, because he was under the impression before he came and talked to me, he was doing this all on his own without talking to an attorney. He thought, well, I'm named the executor, so I can do whatever I want. He didn't, go through the court system. He didn't read the will. He didn't know where the property was supposed to go. And so he said, well, I'm in charge. I need this and this and this for my business, and I need to, use this money to pay off my kids', tuition in college.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, I get where he's coming from. He thought he was in charge, and that meant kind of he got to choose what to do.
Not exactly.
And it doesn't work that way. You have to go through the court system if you've got a will and it needs to be probated. And before you can act on any of it, you have to get what are called letters testamentary. And that's good not only if you're the executor, but it's great knowledge to know if you're someone who thinks they're going to get something from someone who has a will. Because if you haven't gotten a letter in the mail that says, hey, we're going to have a hearing on this date, then they probably haven't taken the steps they need to take in order to do this correctly.
Or you may not be in the will.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're the child, even if you're not in the will, you should still receive something in the mail that gives you a copy of the will and tells you when the court hearing is, so that you at least know.
So the nice thing about wills is I'm not going to air all my dirty laundry out there. I'm not going to say my sister gets this, my mom gets this, my fiance gets this. Wills are not public, right?
Well, they're not until they go through the probate process. Once they go through the probate process, then it is part of the public record because it's a court hearing.
You caught my trick question there, didn't you?
I did.
So in order for a will to be valid, it has to be made public.
Correct.
And everyone can go see that, and anyone that has a claim on the estate or thinks they do, they can go to that hearing and say, well, Alex promised me his shotgun, or Alex promised me his car, and that becomes kind of a can of worms.
Yeah, it certainly can. Most of the time, oral promises to someone aren't going to count. But again, that's not something that you know without having an attorney talk to you about how these things work.
So when someone passes away, if whoever's been designated the executor, if they know they're the executor, because sometimes people don't even know they're the executor, is there an important thing that they need to do with that will? Is there a timeline there?
Yeah. So another myth is that you can just kind of do this whenever you want to. In Kansas, especially, we have a very hard 6-month deadline. So 6 months after the date of death, if you're 6 months and a day, they're going to tell you, too bad, it's not valid anymore.
Now, yes, they'll tell you it's not valid, but there are things, if that happens, there are kind of, I don't want to call them safety features. Fallback provisions is probably a better way to describe that for, does just stuff just stay out there? Because I've met some people that they never got around to probating their parents' stuff, and they might have real estate in their name. They may have stocks still in their name.
It becomes really hard to untangle. Generally speaking, what happens is the court treats it as if someone died without a will.
Oh.
And so they have to go through the intestate process, which is the one where the state guesses as to what someone wants. And it's, it goes to certain people based on what the statute says.
Right. The statutes have almost like an order of succession,
right?
Where if people are alive or if you have those people in your life, then it goes to those assets. And that's probably not what you intended, because you probably thought you were doing the planning. You probably thought you were doing the right thing, getting all these things taken care of, but you're not going to be here to make sure it gets followed through with.
And that's why it's so important to communicate your estate plan with the people that are going to be enacting the estate plan. Whether it's the executor or the trustee of the trust, they all need to know kind of all those steps so that they're not making a mistake along the way and making it more difficult for your assets to go where you want them to go.
You have left out one other solution, or they could just come talk to you guys at Eidelman Law Firm, and you guys could take care of it all.
That's a pretty good solution, I think.
So there are people that try and navigate this on their own, and it causes them a lot of headaches, and it can cause them a lot of financial grief too. And sounds like someone's maybe even getting a visit from Barney Fife, Mr. Law Enforcement, because he was doing a lot of things that he wasn't allowed to do, and ignorance is not going to be probably a defense on his part.
Right. It's never a defense. And so you don't know what you don't know. So it's just easier to come in and talk to us or any attorney and say, hey, what's going on? What do I need to do? I got this document that says I'm the executor, or I got this letter in the mail. Do I need to show up to the hearing? What are the next steps? And we'll talk to you about that.
If you're thinking to yourself out there, man, I don't even have an estate plan, or it's been so long since I've even looked at it. You don't want to just have these things, set it and forget it. Your life changes, circumstance changes, laws change. And if you haven't had maybe a review, or maybe you haven't even figured out what you need in an estate plan, reach out and give us a call at 833-MAG-REPORT. You can schedule a 15-minute chat with the estate planning team and just figure out what's going on in your situation, and maybe what are some next steps you should take. Or maybe you just have a couple of simple questions that you'd like to ask, and we'd be happy to do that. And you can do that, again, by scheduling that 15-minute call by calling 833-MAG-REPORT, or that's 833, the letters MAG, report, or you can go over to our website at retirehour.com. Well, stay tuned. We've got Joshua Sikora, CPA, coming in and talking about winning the tax lottery, how we've had 15 plus clients get stimulus money going all the way back to 2021 just recently. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss that. Welcome back into Retire Hour. This is something you told me yesterday, and I was kind of going in passing, and I asked you this morning for more information. This is screwy.
It sure is screwy.
And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I've not seen anything about this on the news. Mm-hmm. I've not read about anything online. The IRS is still sending out stimulus money from 2021.
Yep. Yeah. So
and it might be double the money they've already gotten, and they don't owe it back.
Yeah. So
what the heck is going on here?
I don't know. It's raining money. I don't know which. And here's the crazy part. So you said you didn't hear anything about it on the news. The IRS announced this back on December 20th. So what, 3 weeks ago now?
And so they said if you're getting these letters and getting money just deposited in your account.
That's exactly what our clients have seen. So I prepared the return. I saw the letters they got from the IRS saying they got this money.
Originally in 2021.
Originally, when they were supposed to.
That's right. The original.
That's right. Way back in the day. when we would not when we would not have been sitting together like this. And so I know that they received the money that they were supposed to. And now the IRS announced it's actually 1 million taxpayers are going to be receiving those. And the rules of this, as they've always have been, if you got overpaid on your stimulus, you are supposed to keep those dollars. You didn't earn these dollars. You didn't do anything to get the dollars, so it's not income. So you don't pay income taxes on it. It is literally tax-free money appearing out of thin air.
This is the scurriest thing in the world. And it's just, so it's 2025, and this is for tax year 2021.
Yeah.
And money's just, and you said you've had 15 so far.
Yeah.
So we need to get to those other million.
Yeah.
So this is, and speaking of millions, this is not millions. This is like $500, $600. What are the dollar amounts?
$1,400 per person on the return. So I mean, if you got 4 people, that's $5,600.
And so we had a client call in, let's call him Dan, and Dan said, "Hey, what's this money?"
What on earth? And I had to say, Dan, it's like you've won the lottery here. You claim you did everything you're supposed to do. The government thinks you deserve this money. They don't want it back, and you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Can you imagine someone being out there in retirement and they see this deposit in their account and they're like, what? And they call maybe the tax person if they can get a hold of the person that's been doing their taxes for that many years. Maybe they've been doing it on their own. This would be kind of a weird deal just to have money from the IRS show up in your account.
Right, because now you're assuming, okay, did my identity get stolen and something got messed up? Did the IRS make a mistake that I have to now unwind? And good luck trying to call through to the IRS.
They have a phone number?
They do, but nobody really answers it.
Oh, well, then that's pointless.
And, if they do answer it, sometimes they just hang up on you because they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, it happens. It's this government. But this tax lottery, I mean, you're calling it winning the tax lottery. This is, it was fortunate that Dan, and I know who the real Dan is, the client. It was fortunate that he had this team he could call and as a resource and say, hey, what's this?
That's right. What's going on here? And then we were able to explain, what happened, explain that we don't know what the government's doing. The government doesn't know what they're doing, but you're supposed to keep this money and they don't want it back and you don't pay taxes on it. And that was a pretty good day for him then.
Can I get a list of the 15 clients? I need a loan. I'm kidding. I'm not. No, that's you and I were talking. It's just the stimulus money just keeps coming. We think it's done, and you get all this COVID money. It's causing inflation. It's not helping with inflation. But that's another story. Back to again the original point. If a retiree is not working with a team that works together and knows these things about their situation, whose responsibility does that really fall on?
Back on the taxpayer, the
retiree,
who should be our client.
Who should be our client. That's true. That's true. But so this is not money they owe back, just to be clear.
That's right. It's not taxable. It's not income. It's literally, in every sense of the word, free money.
So $1,400 times that's $14 million just out in the economy. Or even more, maybe, because I mean,
it's $1,400 per person.
Well, I mean, yeah, but a taxpayer, you could, like you said, you could have 4 people in the tax return. It could be more than 14 million.
Yeah.
And it's just the IRS trying to clean up their books and say, well, we didn't think you got this money the first time. Here it is again. But you can prove that we got the money the first time, or that client got the money the first time because they have the first stimulus letters.
Yeah.
But they don't owe it back.
That's right.
The more and more I talk about this, I just feel like my head's going to explode because this doesn't even seem.
Do you know what would make you feel better in this situation?
A Freddy's cheeseburger?
Well, close. How about a taco?
Oh, and you guys talk about this on your new show, Taxes and Tacos, right?
Taxes and Tacos. If that wasn't a ham-fisted segue, I don't know what is. So we've got this new show. It's out on YouTube. I think we're going to start running it after this show you were talking about.
On Cox, on a couple of our networks, we have some extra time. Cox Cable 22, we can do that there. But it's great that you guys have that show. And you guys highlight different Mexican restaurants.
Different local Mexican restaurants and different tax problems that are going to wallop us all over the head.
And the tacos just make it a little more palatable to talk about all the taxes.
Exactly so.
Well, if you guys are out there and wondering, man, I need to go check my bank account and see if I got this stimulus money. And if you have any questions with that, or maybe you're just thinking, it would be great to work together as a team so I could go to this team and ask them these questions. Reach out and schedule a 15-minute call just to see if you could benefit. And you can do that by calling 833-MAG-REPORT or 833, the letters MAG, stands for Market Advisory Group Report. Or you can go to our website at retirehour.com. We'd love to have just a 15-minute chat with you by phone. Or if you're ready to come into any of our offices across the Wichita, Kansas or Kansas City metro area, we could talk about that on the phone as well. But we want to make sure you're getting the information you need to have an enjoyable retirement. So you don't have these expensive mistakes or these questions that come out of the blue and it all falls on your shoulders to figure it out. It's not the way it's probably meant to be. And I talk about it all the time. The retirement system's broken. And if you want to see what you can do to make your situation better, again, go out to our website at retirehour.com. Well, that's all the time we have this week. We'll see you next week.
Unless otherwise indicated, all client names have been changed to protect their identities. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns are not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not in any way refer to investment advisory products. Rates and guarantees provided by insurance products and annuities are subject to the financial strength of the issuing insurance company, not guaranteed by any bank or the FDIC. The guest commentators featured in this show are not investment advisor representatives of Foundations and do not provide advisory services. Market Advisory Group does have several investment advisor representatives that can provide such services. This is not endorsed or affiliated with any U.S. government agency, the Social Security Administration, or associated with any federal Medicare program. We do not offer every plan available in your area. Any information we provide is limited to those plans we do offer in your area. Please contact Medicare.gov or 1-800-MEDICARE to get information on all of your options. A Roth conversion may not be suitable for your situation. The primary goal in converting retirement assets into a Roth IRA is to reduce the future tax liability on the distributions you take in retirement or on the distributions of your beneficiaries. The information provided is to help you determine whether or not a Roth IRA conversion may be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Please review your retirement savings, tax, and legacy planning strategies with your legal/tax advisor to be sure a Roth IRA conversion fits into your planning strategies. All rights reserved.